I'm going to be really blunt with you guys. I've tried the advanced version of the Strat-O-Matic Basketball board game, and honestly, I'm both confused and unimpressed. Now, the confusing part of that is understandable. I don't have much experience after all. The flow of the game is still pretty new to me, and I hate to say this, but the instruction manual isn't exactly clear about what the decision-making matrix looks like. But you know, when I thought about it after playing it, I realized that the problem wasn't the fast action cards or the concept of control or anything like that. Now, it's the amount of hands-on decision-making that I needed to use. For example, I needed to choose up to 2 players to be positioned inside for both teams. Now, exactly what positioned inside means is kind of a mystery to me. The more I think about it, the more that I believe that this is another example of Hal Richmond trying to bring his knowledge of half-court basketball to the tabletop. Okay, let's look at a few old clips to understand this. So in this January 1986 76ers Celtics game, you can see that Philadelphia has 2 guys down low when they bring the ball down. So that's Moses Malone right here, and here is Bobby Jones, who's barely visible behind him. Okay, so there's your 2 men underneath, right? But then watch what happens. As the play develops, Dr. J runs inside and gets positioned down low. Notice that Boston's big men, Parrish and Bird, are out of the play. It was a decoy set play. But the pass wasn't great. Dr. J had the ball, but is double teamed, and now the defense can react. And so Dr. J has to dribble back out and reset. So I guess this play would just count as a reset in Strat-O-Matic terminology. But you know, one of the major problems that the game has is that your guys are either inside or outside, and that's not how basketball works, even in the 1980s. In real life, you have guys moving inside, outside, back and forth, and so on. It's a game of motion, and it's even worse, Strat-O-Matic that is, at modeling modern basketball. Okay, let's look at how Golden State comes down with the ball in this game from 2015. And yeah, I know that the 2015-16 Warriors are a special team. So look at this. They have absolutely nobody there down low. They do have one guy posting up somewhat low, but only for a second. And in the end, this winds up with Klay Thompson getting a wide open three-pointer, which he hits. Notice, though, that there is absolutely nobody underneath on offense. Everybody is outside. It's almost like the key is lava. So do you see what my problem is? In playing this game, I'm supposed to take the offense and divide it up between guys who are underneath and guys who are outside. But nobody plays that way these days. I mean, even most 7-footers these days are expected to be able to handle the ball and penetrate. So it feels to me like Strat-O-Matic's advanced game is really stuck in the early 1980s, but it doesn't even get that right since there's no real way to create motion on offense. Of course, a big part of the problem is the 3-point shot, and honestly, I think every basketball sim these days struggles with this. The advanced rules for Strat-O-Matic state that you can only take a 3-pointer if the player is about to take an outside shot, which means he has to be outside and can't be positioned inside. You also need to draw an action card that's something like this. See the visitors column here, for example. Now, there are super advanced rules to allow automatic 3-point attempts, but you still have to draw the outside shot only card first. And the most recent rule updates have additional rules that allow players to take 3-point shots on the fast break as well. But even here, the wording is really confusing. It tells me that these players can take 3-point shots in lieu of outside shots, but that makes no sense, right? According to the normal advanced rules, you can only take 3 points if you're outside. So I'm not sure what Strat means by this. It's a real head scratcher. But my biggest problem, though, is trying to figure out when I should penetrate and when I should take the 3. The fast break system actually isn't that hard to figure out, though it does feel a little bit awkward. But you know, having me decide on offense for both teams, whether each player is penetrating or taking a 3 or a 2-point outside shot, just feels awkward, at least to me. I can see having the coach call specific plays, and I can also see this working well if you're playing against another person and you're trying to determine whether a certain player has an advantage over his defender. But for solo play, it feels kind of like overkill. Anyway, a Google search and a link on Board Game Geek brought me to this blog, the X column. This blog by Chris Carl is simply amazing. I've put a link in the description of the video so you guys can check it out. I strongly recommend at least downloading and looking through his solitaire play options. And a few of these options seem to have solved my problems. Honestly, in my mind, the most important rule is this one, disregarding the inside-outside rule and using the game itself to determine the type of shot. Now, this set of rules requires a 20-sided die and 2 6-sided die of different colors in addition to the normal 3 dice. So stock up on your dice. Seriously though, most of us probably have a whole bunch of these dice just lying around or as part of different games. And in this case, these options really do help with the flow of the game. Now the next step is kind of difficult, but it's necessary for modern seasons. You've got to give players 3-point frequency ratings from 0 to 20. That refers to the 3-point attempt rate, or 3PAR, that you find in the advanced section of Basketball Reference. So you take these numbers and you multiply them by 20. And so for example, for Steph Curry in 2015-16, you get 0.554 times 20, which is almost exactly 11. You then roll the 20-sided die first when it's time for a shot. If the die gives you a number less than or equal to that 3-point frequency number, the player takes a 3. So that strikes me as a lot more simple than the advanced game method, which restricts attempts to certain card readings and uses a 6-sided die. And it's a really good reason why Strat should use an actual 20-sided die and fix up and modernize its action cards. So remember that the advanced cards were created before Strat used the 20-sided die like in its baseball game. It's a really archaic system. If it's not a 3, you look at the shooter tendency ratings and you compare that to the result of one of the two 6-sided die. Chris calls it the green one, but of course it can be any color. Shooting tendencies, of course, tell you if the player tends to shoot from the outside or penetrate. So Tyrese Halliburton, for example, is going to penetrate about half the time. In contrast, Ben Shepherd is likely only going to shoot. And then the other color die determines if the player shoots from the outside or from the inside. Now obviously, if you're shooting with somebody like Luke Cornett, he's only going to shoot inside no matter what. But when it comes to shooting with Jason Tatum, this system is actually really helpful. You no longer have to guess whether he's shooting inside or outside or worry about whether to position himself low or high. And that's really the biggest thing that I was struggling with. Honestly, I found myself positioning everybody outside and shooting threes all day when I played, not knowing what else to do. Before I found the system, that is, everything just felt wrong. There's some other cool stuff in these rules too, like a system for automatically determining the recipient of a 1+ position shot reading. I also like not worrying about double teaming, though I'd argue that this takes a bit away from the feeling that you're actually coaching the game. And all in all, that's probably the biggest criticism I have so far of Strat's advanced game. It's got more variety than the basic game, sure, but it really was designed to be played by 2 people and to be played strategically. If you're playing it alone, it's really hard to determine important things, like the double team for both teams. And above all, the biggest problem with this game is the fact that Strat-O-Matic doesn't create any past seasons. Now its competitors do, and they've established good market positions because of Strat's reluctance to do the obvious. It's crazy to me that Strat would have a game so well suited for 1970s and 1980s NBA play and yet not offer a single one of those seasons. Now if you look around, you can find user-created seasons like these 1974-75 ABA cards or these 1984-85 NBA cards. Well, I have to assume that the cards are accurate, though I'm honestly not sure, and I don't think that we would know unless we did a whole replay with them. Anyway, I'm going to keep playing and keep trying, and I'll see if I can get to a point where I'm a little bit more comfortable with this game. So let me know what you guys think about the way the game works and this system.